Ahead at Prairie Meadows. So we are going to dive into some of the big stakes races for the weekend. And we were very lucky to have from DRF joining us again, Mary Rampellini. Mary, you are one who gets to focus on a lot of the races in the Midwest here. So when it's a big day for a Texas track, an Iowa track, a Louisiana track, it's really a track that you've had a lot of focus on and one that you've been covering day in, day out.
Yes, it's kind of it's kind of nice because all the horses kind of flow from the Midwest region. We have horses that are going to be in these races up at Prairie from Lone Star Park, Evangeline Downs. So even sweeping into my southern region, we're seeing those horses move up into the Midwest, which is nice. It gives you a little insight um, you know, uh on different circuits.
So for this weekend, you and I are recording on Thursday. It's even more than we're going to talk about the Saturday stakes races, which are very good. But there's also a big Friday evening too. This has become a 2-day sort of like a weekend event over the last. I guess it's been a while at Prairie Meadows where they've had these Friday, Saturday, or throughout the weekend, kind of the Iowa Festival of Racing, I believe.
That's right. Yes, and there'll be four thoroughbred stakes, as you mentioned, Friday night, and there'll be a focus on some older sprinters in those races, and then there'll be the four thoroughbred races Saturday night, which are the heavy hitters, the Cornhusker, the Grade Three, $300,000 race for the older males at a mile and an eighth, or older horses at a mile and an eighth, I should say, and then you've got your Iowa Oaks, which is a Grade Three, and your Iowa Derby. So yeah, big races on Saturday night.
Okay, so those are the races that we're going to talk about. And if you're not following Mary and some of the work that she does over at Daily Racing Form at DRF, please do so right now. Fantastic stuff. If you're a handicapper, if you're a gambler, if you're just a fan of racing, if you're an owner, if you're a trainer, if you're just trying to find out any information, it really helps you on all levels. Mary, I can't tell you how much you help me over the last few years in my handicapping, focusing in now a lot on Louisiana Downs, focusing on Sam Houston. Anytime there's something going on, I'll go like right to your social media. I'll start looking for some of the articles that you've posted recently, and I try to find anything else that I can out. So you are a great resource for all of the bettors out there, and you do such a fantastic job. We want to dive on in and
Thank you, Gina.
Oh
Thank you.
no. Well, no problem. Thank you for joining us. We're lucky to have you, and we are going to talk about some of the Saturday races. For those of you who may see this, actually, because I'm gonna put the interview, the audio of it, also on social media. We're actually looking at the past performances from Daily Racing Form, drf.com. That's the place that I use for all of my handicapping. Every time I'm looking at one race, any full card, big days, smaller days, I'm always looking at DRF. That for me is where I can make sense of everything the most. And with the formulator past performances that I pulled up right now, it's so nice because you're one click to a replay, one click to a race chart, one click to owner trainer information, one click to pedigree information. It just makes our job as handicappers a lot easier than having to pull up 10 different tabs and all these different websites. You can get it all at drf.com. For anyone that wants to follow along, we're looking at the 6th race at Prairie Meadows for July the 9th. This is the Prairie Gold Juvenile. And Mary, we have some horses that are, for big barns. We have horses coming in from Churchill Downs. We've got a few that broke their maiden over at Churchill. We've got a Steve Asmussen, a Mike Maker trainee. Chassis Pommier is one that I've started to become familiar with. That's a barn that does really good work with young horses. This is a fun Prairie Gold Juvenile where it looks like Undelay, Top Recruit. Probably the Churchill horses will take a little more money just because of their wins at the bigger track.
Yeah, I think so. I liked Undelay a little bit in here for the fact that he's been so quick, and he's gotten out of that gate on top every time, and I think that's important with these baby races. Get up and get going. And I like the two horses that he defeated came back and won, so that makes that race a key race as well. And he'll be first Lasix here. But you're right. I mean, I think Top Recruit's on another horse who was flattered off of his debut win last out. Two horses came back to win out of that race, and I guess when you look at it, there's a lot of speed in this race.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is, who is going to be able to sit, who maybe is going to look at the race and say what we're saying, right? Hey, you know
Right.
what? If we can maybe sit off the pace a little bit, things may work for us. The one horse that's a bit intriguing to me is the 6 Todd Chero, just kind of because of the draw. I'm always looking at these races and thinking, if someone can sit, it's probably a little easier if you're drawn towards the outside to sort of break, look over. You're not really forced. I'm not sure if he is quite as good as some of the others, but he beat a horse who came right back to win their next start. And Lane Luzzy is someone who, over the last couple years, he is really starting to pick up some momentum. And I have been extremely impressed with his riding ability.
Yeah, like you said, that outside post should give Lane the opportunity to kind of see if things set up, and if his horse is agreeable, then maybe he can just kind of settle off of it. You see some of the horses' breezes. There's a half and 49 and 4, so maybe that was a controlled type work. I did not see that work, but I'd be interested to see what that horse does. And maybe this horse on the far outside, Baytown, Get It On, might sit a little off of it. He used those tactics.
And well, he's the most
win his
proven,
maiden.
right? Of everyone, at least we've seen him do that. We
Right.
haven't really seen anybody else do that.
That's right. That's right. And so, yeah. And again, the baby races, there's, so many of them. These are all coming out of 5/8 of a mile races. So, speed is king in those young horse races. So it will be interesting to see how they start to sort themselves out. Maybe a horse like Prove Right could sit, although he's in that inside post. And,
he's one, like, if he was drawn towards the outside a little bit more,
Yes.
I would immediately have gone towards him.
Right. I understand what you're saying, looking at it that way. And
Yeah.
I should mention, you mentioned Chassis Pommier. Her family has had a lot of success with young horses, and Chassis has had a lot of 2-year-old success. And this horse, Free from Guilt, is a half brother to Free Like a Girl, who's a multiple stakes winner around 2 turns. So I just find this horse interesting that they're bringing him up in here. And Free Like a Girl runs later on the card in the Iowa Oaks. And, their work with young horses might make him a horse that's very adaptable type of horse.
That's the Prairie Gold Juvenile. It's going to go as race number 6 on Saturday, and it's an important one that kicks off a jackpot pick 5 that's going to encompass some of the big stakes races on the Prairie Meadows Saturday card. As we turn the page from the Prairie Gold Juvenile, we next take a look at the Grade 3 Iowa Oaks, $225,000 up for grabs in this one. And you've got big barns here too. Todd Pletcher shipping in. Candy Raid is going to be coming in for Keith DeSormo. Butterbean for Ken McPeak came over to Prairie and won a local prep race here and has won back-to-back races. And then the aforementioned Free Like a Girl, who is a 7-time winner and just continues to win Louisiana bred stakes races. Now we'll try to see what she can do against Open Company. This is a good renewal of the Iowa Oaks.
Yeah, absolutely, Gino. And I think there's a lot of speed in this race as well, as we were talking about speed last time. And that might set up nicely for Candy Raid.
Mm-hmm.
I should mention that she's cross-entered in the Indiana Oaks, which falls on the same day this year. But her trainer, Keith DeSormo, said yesterday when we were doing an interview for the form that she would run in this spot. She'll run at Prairie Meadows. So
good information. I agree with you, especially with the horse. Like when Free Like a Girl draws the inside, she may want to be a little aggressive to try to get a good spot, and that could make things all a little bit quicker. That you could see Falconet showing some speed there. You could see Hartley showing some speed there, and then to the outside, no Silver Spoon here. So now all of a sudden we could have combinations of 4 horses right up on the front end. Miss Hard Knocks, while she didn't show speed on the turf last time out, she's also got plenty of speed in her arsenal. So I agree with you, Mary. It does look like, from a gambling, handicapping standpoint, I'm probably going to try to look for a horse or 2 off the pace. Maybe Candy Raid, maybe Butterbean.
Yeah, Butterbean won the local prep, the Panthers, so she's got a win over the track, and she's also won at this mile and the 16th distance. So she's got a couple of things in her favor too.
Yeah, and you look, it was a while ago, but at the end of 2021, when she was in the maiden ranks, she was behind a horse named Shotgun Hottie. We saw Shotgun Hottie come back and finish second in the Delaware Oaks just last weekend. So just shows you that from a class standpoint, if you were maybe a little worried about some of the races she comes out of, she's actually competed with top-notch company. The Keeneland race was really good on April the 10th too, behind Distinctly Possible, Miss Yearwood. So yeah, if the race plays out as we are seeing it might, she may get a really nice trip in here too for Ken McPeek. And I like when horses come and get a race at the track under their belt. Sometimes that local prep can really be nice because you're acclimated. You've been there. You've been through the barn before. You've gone through everything you have to do at that racetrack. It's just a routine.
Absolutely. And then some of these horses, for some of them, they'll be racing under the lights for the first time. But if they have the opportunity to already do that, they'll have some familiarity with the situation. So
great point.
Lots of reasons for that. Sure.
We continue on to the Iowa Derby, $250,000 up for grabs for 3-year-olds. They'll be going 1 mile and a 16th in here. And I believe Ken McPeek has said that Rattle and Roll will be running at Indiana, right? In the Indiana Derby on a quick turnaround. He's coming back on just a week.
Yes. Mr. McPeek did say he would scratch. We talked earlier this week, and he also told my colleague Marcus Hirsch that. And I also should let you know that Marcus Hirsch is reporting that Actuator also will go in the Indiana Derby. So we will have 2 defections.
Great info. Thank you.
So of the 10-horse field. So we're looking at 8 right now if everything pans out like we're reporting.
And I feel like we've been we're going to sound like a broken record in here, but I think even with a couple of the scratches, we could still see Rome showing some early speed, Big Blue Line showing some early speed, Major General, he wants to be close up. Conacher doesn't want to be too far out of it. Field of Fear, he wants to be right there. Diamond Rim, he's maybe a little bit more of a presser. And Ain't Live Grand is probably a little bit more of a presser too, but there could be combinations of maybe 5 horses all trying to show the way and get some positioning here.
It is an interesting race to see how it will set up because there's a chance Conacher could prove to be, the dominant speed in here.
You're right.
Based on the, the fractions he set in his effort, and he's stretching out for the first time. So it is very interesting to see how this will develop. I'm very interested to see Conacher run.
Yeah.
Just talking to his trainer, Mike Tomlinson, there's a lot of distance, stamina on the bottom side. The mare, that family went 2 turns. This horse has a half. That's a 3-time route winner. And I just don't know what kind of colt this is. I'm just very interested to see what he does, Gino.
He might be the real deal. And as you were mentioning the pedigree, what's nice is I can just click and pull up some of that pedigree right there on DRF when you're using the formulator past performances. And we can take one click to look at the chart of the race that he comes out of. He just beat Gunite, who came back last week and looked very impressive, winning the Maxfield, a $160,000 stakes race at Churchill. He earned a nice speed figure in doing so. So that compliments Conacher and that franks his form even more.
Yeah, it gives him a little feel for his class, perhaps, that he just defeated a grade 1 winner. So yeah, I agree with you. You're using all those tools to help you kind of assess this horse, and now we'll see if he does it in the flesh, if he does it on paper. What I did like talking to Mike Tomlinson was that he said this is a very rateable type of individual. Again, his speed might just put him right on the lead. He might just be that quick, but the fact is that he's a very manageable type individual. The kind of horse he said that'll work, whatever you want from him in the morning. So that's a really nice recommendation on his mental abilities.
That's great on Conacher. The wild card for me, a horse that I would maybe throw into like a pick 4 or a pick 5 situation, is the 10. Now, Chileno, I don't think is quite as good and as proven as some of the other top tier horses. But if we're sort of taking Conacher and some of his speed figures out and then looking at everybody else, I think if Conacher gets beat, it's probably because they go too quick early and he has to deal with a bunch of other early pace from some of the inside horses. With Rattle and Roll out of this race, there are not very many closers, horses who are really going to drop back and make one late run. And while Chileno took a while to break his maiden, he can close. And when you dive into his races and look at some of the horses that he's faced, it's not as if he's been disgraced by horses like Trafalgar, Best Actor, who came back to win his next start. He was behind Ethereal Road. He's been in some tough races. Kuchar, who actually was second in the Oaklawn Stakes and then was second behind Rattle and Roll in the American Derby. He was right behind that one. So for me, if I was looking for kind of a wild card in here, there are versions of this race where maybe they go a little too fast, and I could see Chileno at least picking up some pieces late and hitting the board.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, those company lines are important. We the People's also.
We the People.
Lines, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think this horse has a nice foundation of races, and that racing experience and that foundation will serve him well. And like you pointed out, the company lines are there. He's seen some class individuals, and he might have the right running style for this race. And then, of course, I would expect, or hopefully, as a handicapper, you like to see Major General recapture his best form.
Yep.
He's getting back on dirt and back at a mile and the 16th. And so, that wouldn't be a surprise at all to see him pop up and run to his potential that he showed earlier in the year and last year at 2.
His A game is really good, and when you dig into his form race by race, you can kind of make excuses for some of the poor performances. Tampa Bay Derby, okay, it was coming off a layoff. He was on a good track that day, and he just didn't have the best of starts. Then he comes back. He runs really well in the Lexington. They take a shot in the Pat Day Mile. Well, he's involved early in the pace. Jack Christopher has been a monster. He's looked incredible in coming back in his last 2. And then they take a chance on the turf. So now all of a sudden you can be a little forgiving about a couple of those. And this feels like a good wake-up spot for him to at least give a very good account of himself.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's the kind of horse that, I look forward to watching him run as well, because he just he seems like he's got a horse that's got a nice second half of the year in him, hopefully.
Yep. We are finishing up the conversation on the Saturday stakes races. We're looking at the past performances from DRF.com, and we're talking with Mary Rampellini from DRF. Mary, we get to the Cornhusker, the Grade 3 Cornhusker, which is race number 9 on Saturday night, and they will go a mile and an eighth, $300,000. We've got a field of 6, but we've got 2 millionaires, and we've got another horse who might become a millionaire if they were to win this race, and they're favored. So not a group of 10 or 12, but a really, really solid group in here. And even when you look at the betting, the odds are concerned, there's one horse that's double digits. I mean, any of the others really wouldn't be a shock if they ran very, very well or won this thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting race to read, because I am curious to see if officiating just goes out, stretching out from the 6 furlongs and can, try to pull a wire job. He's going to have, a real distance test going from that 6 furlongs to a mile and an eighth, but he's a son of Blame. I find him very interesting. And he's also a half to Caledonia Road, the champion Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner from a few years ago. So there are reasons to believe, he'll be effective here. But then I wonder what Flash of Mischief is going to do. That horse has a lot of quickness, a lot of speed as well. So if they go, it could set up very nicely for the Silver Prospectors, the Warrants, and the Rated R Superstars. I'm very anxious to see how this race sets up out of the gate.
Yeah, I agree. Because in a smaller field, it's sometimes harder to project, because in a field of 10 or 12, and we know there's 4 or 5 speed horses, you can be pretty sure that there's going to be an honest pace. But in a race like this, where there's only 6 and you have 1 or 2 that could go or could sit, it kind of becomes a game of like a rider's game, a little game of cat and mouse sometimes.
Yeah, it will be very interesting. And then obviously, like you said, I mean, they got to get out of the gate. So I'm anxious to see what officiating does. I do find him very interesting.
Like here. A wild card.
Yeah, to me he is. So, so he's an interesting horse. And how did you go here, Gino? Because I really back and forth between Silver Prospector and Warrant. It's a tough call between those 2 horses. I think if you're down to those 2,
I think I'm probably leaning a little, like at a mile and an eighth. I think Warrant may be a little bit better suited at a mile and an eighth than Silver Prospector. I will say disappointed may not be the right word, but I maybe wanted a little bit more from Warrant after the Santa Anita handicap race where he was so good. And he
Sure.
came out here and he almost won that race. And it was, his second start as a 4-year-old. So he came out of a race behind Mandaloon and Midnight Bourbon. And then he got bet in the Ben Alley. And, he was a little disappointing as your favorite to finish fourth in there. He came back and was very good in the Brooklyn behind a nice horse named Fearless. And so he's the horse in here that I'm the most interested in, and I think is a very nice one for Brad Cox. I would probably lean that way, but we have to mention the cool 9-year-old who you did rated our superstar, graded stakes winner. He's earned over 1.6 million. And in an era in horse racing where we don't get to see horses run for many years, a lot of times, especially at the top levels, we'll see them for 10 races sometimes, and that's it. To see a horse with 60 career starts, that's 9 years old, that's won 11 times, and that's still going strong, it's really cool. And I think it's something that we should, give a testament to the connections, Danny Caldwell, and now trained by Federico Villafranco, because when you're able to have a horse like this continue to train, even when they are a gelding later in their career, it's something that we don't see as much in racing anymore.
Now you have to appreciate a horse like that. If you at all enjoy the sport of racing, yeah, you have to appreciate an old war horse. And like you said, Gino, continuing to perform at a graded stakes level. He was third in this race for the last 2 years. And he hooked Nick's Go last year in this race. So yeah, you have to really give this horse his propers. And what's he got? 2 stakes wins already this year at the age of 9, I think.
Yeah.
Little sidebar for folks. David Cabrera, who was aboard this horse for both of those stakes wins this year, had been sidelined, but David will be back on Rated R Superstar for the first time since the Essex in March at Oaklawn, since this horse's last win. David will have his first mounts back Friday night at Lone Star Park, and then he'll head over to Prairie on Saturday, and he's back in full swing. So yes, and they have a pretty special relationship, David and Rated R Superstar.
David has been someone that's opened my eyes quite a bit too. And that's the one thing in working at TVG years back and in covering all breeds, all levels from the bottom all the way to the top. Just because someone's at one of the top tracks, or I guess the better way to put it, because some of the folks may be running in the lower level races does not mean they are not talented or not as talented as the trainers, the jockeys, the owners, the horsemen at the big tracks. Sometimes it's all just about opportunity. And in seeing David Cabrera over the last couple of years, he is as good of a rider as there are out there. And he was able to go to Oaklawn and have very good success after riding in Texas for a while. And it's something that I've just had a chat with trainer Shane Wilson, who does such a great job at Louisiana, about one of the riders, Jose Guerrero, who rides for him. These are riders who are fantastic and could ride the best horses at the highest level if just given the opportunity.
Yeah, David wins a lot of races in this market, has racked up a lot of titles over the last several years. So he certainly rides with a lot of confidence. And yeah, like you said, I mean, the old adage is a good horse can come from anywhere. So,
Yep.
Your talent can come from anywhere in racing. And really what it takes is the horse underneath you or the horse behind your webbing. That's what makes a good rider and a good trainer excel. There's talent and their knowledge to bring out the best in that horse, but they have to have the individual to take them there. So once they have those tools, yeah, people begin to see their talent that maybe others knew they already had.
We are so lucky to catch up with Mary Rampellini anytime we get the chance. Mary does a great job. She's the Mid-South correspondent, handicapper for Daily Racing Form. You can see her articles and her work show up there all the time. She does a fantastic job with interviewing connections and getting us all prepared for day-to-day racing at all of the tracks that she covers. Mary, what kind of stuff do you have coming up, or where's your focus going to be in the next, summertime? Let us know a little bit about what's ahead for you.
Yeah, Gina. Well, Gina, first of all, I want to thank you for your enthusiasm for racing, period. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, you're a wonderful voice for racing, and I appreciate
Thank you so
that.
much.
and I'm so happy you are aligned with the Racing Form products, because I wouldn't know how to handicap it other than off daily Racing Form PPs. So I
Yep, me too.
certainly that's my comfort zone. It's like knowing right where everything is in the store. But yeah, what we have going on. Lone Star next weekend, next Saturday, has a nice round of grass stakes coming up.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big card. Four or so really high end grass races, open company stakes, and then the following day on Sunday the 17th, they'll put their Texas breds in the spotlight with several stakes for the Texas bred or sales graduates. So kind of Texas oriented horses, largely Texas breds. So those are kind of the two major days we've got coming up at Lone Star Park. And you flip the calendar to August, and we'll be looking for Remington Park to open and Louisiana Downs to have its Louisiana Cup Day, which they've just announced purses for each of those Louisiana bred stakes will be will be kicked up to $67,000 each race. So that's a nice boost for the Louisiana breeding program.
Great stuff, Mary. We'll bring you back and talk some Remington when they open up. They have some big days of racing coming up in their season. And Louisiana, as you mentioned, yeah, that's just a month away from their big stakes day too. So lots happening. And summer racing is a lot of fun. We know when Saratoga opens, Del Mar opens, and it's a good energy with a lot of these tracks and some big racing ahead. We're always going to go to drf.com, and the Daily Racing Form products are what I use to help me get prepared each and every day. And Mary, I just cannot thank you enough. It's such a pleasure talking with you. Always love your work, and let's make some money this weekend. How's that sound?
Absolutely. I'll be watching to see how these races go and thinking of you, Gino.
Thank you, Mary. Make sure to give her a follow there. Check out all of the work she does with DRF, with Daily Racing Form, and we'll have to bring Mary back very soon to talk some more races once again. Mary, thank you. You have a fantastic weekend, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Gino. Bye now.
Don't go anywhere, folks. We still have a lot more to come on this episode. Make sure to go follow along with Mary, and you can check out all of the great work that she does at drf.com.